Hello again. I'm always interested in examining my own prejudices, for like everybody else, I do of course have them. I had occasion to see a doctor in a specialised branch of medicine recently, and the woman concerned turned out to be a Hindu. As soon as I met her, I could tell at once by the way she spoke and her accent that she had, like me, been born in this country and had trained at a British medical school. I had as much trust in her and her abilities as if she had been white rather than of Indian heritage, and we got on amiably. Her ethnicity, in other words, was an irrelevance to me. The situation has been very different when I've encountered doctors and nurses who were obviously born abroad and trained there. In such cases, I feel an instinctive caution and need to watch carefully what they are doing and listen to see if they know what they are about. In short, I do not entirely trust them, and feel that they need to prove themselves to me. These two different attitudes are enough to convince me that whatever else is going on in my mind, it is not some form of racial prejudice. It may, of course, be good old-fashioned English mistrust and dislike of foreigners, but that's a different matter entirely. Undesirable, perhaps, but nothing at all to do with racism. The fact that so many foreign doctors and nurses have dark skins is irrelevant to me. It is that they trained and qualified in another country which concerns me. But why are there so many foreign medical staff in our hospitals and health centres these days? It never used to be the case. Once upon a time one might have come across Indian doctors occasionally, but now it seems to be the rule. The depressing answer is, of course, that it is cheaper to hire foreigners rather than to pay to train our own doctors. There are plenty of bright young sixth formers in this country with a glittering array of A-levels in scientific subjects who would die for a chance to get into medical school, but that costs an awful lot of money which the government has to shell out. The fees the students pay don't cover the expense, they're only a contribution. Then too, once the government has paid out all that money to train a doctor, there's nothing at all to stop a newly qualified doctor from one of our medical schools simply leaving the country at once and going to practice in Australia or the United States. Then look, you've lost all the money you invested in training him or her. How much more efficient to let other countries train the doctors and then simply poach them once they're qualified. If you do this from third world countries in Africa, then the newly qualified doctors have every incentive to take the opportunity to be able to move to the United Kingdom at the express invitation of the British state. Of course, anybody with a couple of brain cells to rub together would soon see the glaringly obvious disadvantages of this kind of cost saving. One thing, of course, is standards at a medical school in Papua New Guinea or the Congo might not be quite up to the same level as Bart's Medical School in London. In fact, it would be remarkably surprising if this were to be the case, wouldn't it? This means, of course, that a doctor who qualified in, say, Addis Ababa is unlikely to be as knowledgeable and efficient as one trained in Britain. I think that most people would concede that to be the case. If only they are able to disregard their own colour prejudices and think about the matter objectively, that is, which an awful lot of those people who represent themselves as liberals and left-wing and progressive types are unable to do, incidentally. Then there is the simple matter of cultural differences. Doctors from Muslim countries are likely to have varying attitudes towards women, homosexuals, Jews, and other groups in our society. Attitudes which aren't always advantageous, shall we say. And of course, there is the question of language. Anybody who has used the National Health Service in recent years will almost certainly have come across staff whose grasp of English is not, shall we say, perfect. This creates serious problems, especially when dealing with patients who are not in the habit of speaking like somebody from a Berlitz language course. This could, of course, be dismissed as simply insular prejudice against foreigners, a form of xenophobia, were it not for the simple fact that when looking at complaints upheld by the General Medical Council made against doctors, Almost all the names are foreign, and very few are English and Scottish. You're not likely to find people on such lists called Dr. Cameron or Dr. Smith. I'm satisfied in my own mind that the colour of a doctor's skin will not prejudice me against that person, which rules out racial prejudice, but that the name and accent of the doctor will put me on my guard. This is not prejudice, but rather common sense backed by logic and evidence.